So good afternoon, Connected Empowerment. Tony Hightower back again. Got a special treat for you today. I'm here with Sawyer. I met Sawyer a long time ago when I was a company commander for the 57th Military Police Company. At that time, Sawyer was Sara. And so Sawyer is going to talk about the excellent journey that he's had through many of things, from coming out of the military, from coming out, from transitioning, all the things that has been this wonderful journey to really see him come into his own. And let me tell you, a finer military police you will never meet. And so with that, Sawyer, I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of just talk us through your journey, from becoming from being Sara and then becoming Sawyer, and watching you grow into this has just been awesome. So if you just could share your story with the audience and let them know, like, how did all this happen? Just take us through your journey.
Well, thank you, ma'am. So it was not an easy journey. Being in the military was very, very empowering for me. It was very emotional and very uplifting for me. I came from a military family. My dad was in the Navy for 20 years. And so I always knew that I wanted to come into the military. For me, it was some place where I could come into my own and not be treated as a female. I could hide behind the uniform and just fall in. And it didn't matter that I was a male, female, it didn't matter. I was a soldier. Everybody was in green. And I think that's where I kind of first figured out that I wasn't where I was supposed to be. But I grew up Mormon, so I didn't know anything different. I was always taught that you were who you were, and that was what you were given. God didn't make mistakes. And for me, growing up that way, I kind of had to retrain my brain to know that what I was feeling and what I knew was happening with me was okay. And it wasn't that God made mistakes. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't make a mistake with me. It was that I was a two-souled person, that I was someone that had to come out and figure out who I was in my own time. And it wasn't that I knew when I was little or anything like that. I had a good childhood. I did girly things. I did boy things. I was a tomboy, as they called it back then. And I had, my fishing trips and my hunting trips with my dad. And I still learned how to sew, and I still learned how to cook and stuff with my mom and my grandma. And I would go in the garden, and I didn't care. I would do everything. But when I got pregnant with my son and the hormones in my body changed, that was when I figured out that I really didn't want to be a female. And at first, being in the military and don't ask, don't tell was in place. First thing I did was got divorced from my husband. And it wasn't that my husband was a bad guy. I still love him to death. He's a great father and a great man. It's just we didn't fit. And so I ventured out on my own, and I tried, dating and coming out as a lesbian first. And I was a lesbian or bisexual, and I figured out finally that I was pansexual, meaning that I just didn't care. It doesn't matter. As long as, it's hearts, not parts. So figuring out that it wasn't just that I was a lesbian, or that I needed to figure out how to be happy with myself before I could be happy with somebody else. And there was a lot of broken relationships in the time frame before I figured out who I was. And it took years. I've been out of the military since 2012. So it took a long time for me to finally figure out who I wanted to be. And I've been on testosterone now for 5 years. 5 years. I just hit my 5-year mark in June. And I just got top surgery a week before my 5-year mark. So it was a long struggle even to get my top surgery, because the VA doesn't pay for top surgery, which is something that I know you're trying to change and trying to work with. But I had to go through my own insurance, and being disabled through the military and Social Security, that was a struggle. So I've had my own issues through medical issues and things that I've had to deal with. But it's being comfortable and figuring out who you are on your own accord so that you can fight society and fight everything else, knowing who you are, that makes it the fight worth it. And
So
once you
Sawyer,
have,
can you tell us about your top surgery? Can you like somebody walk us through like how that feels? I mean, I know a lot of people hear about it, but I don't think they really know like what that entails and what's the recovery for that. How did that go for you?
recovery's tough. It's not as easy as everybody makes it seem. The first week was really rough. It definitely feels like you have not just a binder on, but like a extremely tight binder. Like you almost can't breathe.
Oh wow.
And with me having asthma, it made it even harder. I developed asthma after going to Iraq the second time. So coming back and getting out of the military, I actually have to use an inhaler now. And that was an issue that my doctor and I had talked about. But the neoprene vests that they put on you after surgery actually are breathable. It's just something that I had to kind of get over in my head that, yes, I'm fine. I can breathe. It's just a little tight.
Yeah.
And once I got over that in my head, I was okay. The tightening in the muscles comes from just the overuse of you using your chest muscles, because you don't realize how often you actually use your chest and your arms, because you're not allowed to use your arms more than like a T-Rex does. For
Wow.
the first 2-3 weeks, you're not supposed to go more than like what a T-Rex, they call it, you have to use T-Rex arms for about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And it's hard because you have to rely on other people. Can't really reach things that are very high. So once you get past that point, it's not so bad, but it is pretty painful, the recovery
Wow.
time. Once the recovery time, you're past like that first month or so, it gets better. You can start using your arms again. You can start actually getting back into full motion. And like with me, my doctor was really happy with my scars. Guys, I'm on an interview. My doctor was really happy with my scarring. They started to heal really fast.
My stomach hurts.
So I started being able to get back into motions a little bit quicker. But like I've had to not do Taekwondo for a couple months because of the impacts with it. But being able to walk around without my shirt on has been very empowering, very freeing. So that's been awesome. But it's definitely something that if you're nervous about it or you're going back and forth about it, wait until you're 100%.
Gotcha.
That it's definitely
So I
something
should
you
be
want.
wearing my shirt around because I don't always. So what are you saying?
I mean, for a long time, once I started testosterone, I run around without my shirt on at the house, but camping and stuff, who's gonna see you?
Exactly. Yeah. And so what's next?
For me, I'm continuing with my hormone therapy and working for, next would be a hysterectomy and then bottom surgery.
Wow. And so can you tell us about that? That's got to be, I've heard a lot about that through some of the trainers that the VA does about what that entails. And it's just so complicated. It seems like, what are your concerns, or, I mean, how are you preparing yourself for that?
The hysterectomy, I'm pretty much already ready for that. It's everything down there has been dead for a while now. So, just ready for that to be either covered by the VA or just get it going with my next doctor.
Okay.
And then after that, phalloplasty is usually a 3-step process, 3 surgery process. So I'm currently going through the U of U because Salt Lake is the closest area for me to go to.
Okay.
And they have amazing surgeons down there. So I'm just waiting for everything on my top surgery to finish healing out, and then we'll move forward on everything else.
And so how does that cover? Because I heard insurance doesn't always cover it all, or, I mean, how are you covering the expenses for all this? Or does insurance cover it?
For me, everything's been covered by insurance because I have
Nice.
TRICARE for life, and then I've got Social Security benefits also.
Good.
So
Okay.
I've got double insurance, but I know a lot of other people have, coverage issues. So sometimes they do fundraising and things like that.
Well, good. So what's your support system been like, Sawyer, as you're going through this transition? How has it been with your family?
My family's been very amazing. Even though I grew up Mormon, my parents have always been very accepting of me and all my family. And
Good.
my fiance actually just came in. This is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
So he's been here 100%. And
Good.
my ex Joan, she's been here pretty much the whole time. Even after we broke up, we've still remained friends. So
Excellent.
We're still family.
yep.
Excellent. So how have you, so a lot of people would ask, like, how did you broach this with your son? How did you break this to Gentry? How have you brought him along the journey with you?
So about a month after I started testosterone, I got him for the summer because his other dad and I share custody. And I talked to him and I was like, hey buddy, you know that I've never really been very feminine, been very, girly or anything. He's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, well, I'm actually gonna, transition to being a guy. And I was like, how do you feel about that? And he's like, okay. And I was like, would you be okay with calling me dad? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like he's the easiest kid to talk to. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
He's a great kid. I'm sure he's like, 2 dads. That rocks. How
right.
many more
And now
kids?
that I'm with Ryan, he has 3. He's like, what do you got? I got 3 dads.
Yeah, what do you got, punk? Yeah, that's great.
Right.
Awesome. So what would your advice be for someone who, like you said, you went through several iterations till you really found yourself. And I know some people get caught up in that box of, well, this is who I am. I can't change it. So what advice do you give people as they're trying to find themselves?
It is definitely like a process, and there's nothing wrong with, one day wanting to be lesbian, the next day wanting to be bisexual, the next day wanting to be pansexual. Explore yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let people tell you that you can't be what you feel you are.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's very, very, very helpful. Thank you so much. You're very, always been a strong person, one of my greatest soldiers for sure. And everything that you did, and how I felt about you, and at that time, your husband, I was actually at your wedding. If you remember, I wore a dress, and that's not like me. So I didn't like it, but I did it for you. I still have that dress in my closet, as a matter of fact. It was something to see for sure. But I've just watched your journey, from afar, seeing you go through all this and just seeing you become more yourself, and watching, you not smile and you just not have that happiness, to all of a sudden, not, I guess all of a sudden, it's been a long journey for you, but to see you smile more often, to see you become more, comfortable with yourself, it's just been amazing. And I'm so proud of you that you didn't give up on, who you really are, and you really just got in touch with that, and you just kept letting yourself go through this transformation until you became who you are. And so happy for you in your upcoming, when's your wedding? When's that going to be?
We're getting married November 22nd.
November 22nd. Are you all ready for that?
Yeah, it's coming up quick, but we're getting there.
All right. Well, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for you to tie the knot and start on your new life together. Work, how has that been? So how is, like, I guess, outside of the family and your own journey, how has it been to change name and change gender and all of that through work and through society? How has that been for you?
Well, for me, it's not really been that much because I don't work. I'm disabled, so I pretty much play taxi with all my kids and run around. But it's just been like correcting people as far as like my family and stuff like that. For my family, it took a minute, but I think with top surgery and like facial hair and things like that, it took less time with that. I think the biggest ones have been my family that aren't close and don't see me as often. So
How are they? Are they still with the wrong pronouns and still calling you your old name? Yeah. Okay. And how do you correct that when it happens?
I just, hey, It's Sawyer. It's he, not she.
Right.
You know, you gotta be patient sometimes. It
Yeah,
does get
I mean, people
frustrating,
don't
and
know.
that's probably the most frustrating. Is like when you have a full beard and you're standing there in front of people and they're still calling you her, and you're like, guys, come on.
Yeah, help me out. Help me out, right? Yeah, that's got to be super frustrating. Sounds like you're very patient though, and I think you're right. That's so important, because when people see you one way, it's really hard sometimes for them to change. They don't change as quick as you do, or
Right.
you're not really changing that quick. But you know, you may have had 5 years to go through this journey, and they've had 5 minutes, and so sometimes it takes them some time to catch up. And it sounds like
Right.
you just deal with that splendidly. So that well done on that. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I was born Tanya, and that never fit me like that. That should have never been my name. But
Right.
you know, it was hard for me to tell my mom I don't go by that. Like I go by Tony. That's just
Right.
my name. Like I don't want you to call me that. And it was
Right.
always a struggle. She's like, well, I named you that. I said, what's your birth name? And she's like, we're not talking about that, because she went also
Right.
by a, you know, went by Jan instead of Janice. So I always got her on that. But you know, it
Like,
just
why
takes
is it okay
sometimes.
for you but not
Why is it
me?
okay, mom? What's this about? She's
Exactly.
like, you know your role and shut it. So yes, I did. But you know, take some time.
Yep.
But she was awesome, you know that. So I just thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very
Of course.
empowering, and I think you have so much to say. And this is really going to help a lot of people that may not understand or maybe questioning and go, you know what? It's okay. Like it's going to be okay. I am who I am. And I love what you said, Sawyer, about, you know, God doesn't make mistakes, because he doesn't. Um, Obviously, right? So you are who you are, and you have to become that. And I love
Right.
that you said that. It really empowers people. We have a lot of suicides because of the box that we throw people in and tell them, if you can't get in this, then, you know, that's on you. But the truth is everybody's journey is different. So thank you for sharing it. Thank you for being so awesome. Thank you for being such a light unto the world, and just sharing this, because I know it's not always easy to go all the way back to the beginning. But I really appreciate you so much. And to those of you who are watching Connect Empowerment, you know, that's the lesson of the day, is that your journey is your journey. There's no right or wrong. And you can keep reinventing yourself until you find your true self. And it can be one day, it can be 10, 15 years. Just keep going until you find your happiness, and don't let anybody else tell you what that should look like. So from us, Sawyer, want to say thank you so much for joining us. Everyone else, thanks for listening in, and take it from Sawyer. Just keep going until you become your true self.